Happy New Year, Steph.
Happy New Year.
How are you? What was your New Year's resolution? Have you done anything?
Not to get in any more car accidents. We got rear-ended pretty badly on Christmas Eve, my daughter and I. And the car's written off, and it was a big hit. And we were on our way to their dad's house to have Christmas. We stay overnight and everything. And so we spent Christmas Eve picking broken glass out of all of the presents and everything. And then the car is going to be a write-off. But so we were looking at
New Year's resolution is not to do that again.
Not to do that again. It was the insurance company has already determined that it was 100% the other guy's fault, so we're good that way. But my ex-husband and I were going. He has to get a new car now, and because I was driving his van because we're moving and everything, and I was like, we were looking at new cars for him, some used cars, and we looked at one and I thought it was really good, and then I was like, I don't know about this one. I don't think we can do it. The muffler looks exhausted.
Well, my New Year's resolutions, so I do workouts at home. I've finally gone to the gym, and today was my first day at the gym, and I did my first lunge today. It was a big step forward.
I already used that one.
You did not.
I did. You go back a few, so you get no points for your dad joke today.
Oh, I must have not been on that episode with you because
yeah.
I would have recognized.
We did get rear-ended really badly on Christmas Eve, and it sucked. And
I believe you. And I should really watch the episodes that I'm not a part of to know when dad jokes don't fall right. So that one was not a good one.
Your destiny. It's to become the primary dad joke guy in Colorado, at least.
Yes. Yeah. I am beating Chris. All right, let's jump into it. Today, Steph, we're talking about developing leads. I'm looking forward to this because this is definitely a weak spot of mine. What if the leads filling your pipeline, assuming that you have leads filling your pipeline, are actually blocking your best deals? Janami Consulting's for Deepak Bhootra tracked the client sales team for 90 days and found 40% of their pipeline would never close. Those zombie deals weren't just dead weight. They were stealing attention from the 15% that could. Today, we're talking about qualifying leads and the counterintuitive case for disqualifying faster. I'm your host, Anthony Franco. With me today is my lovely co-host and happy that it's 2026 person who's not going to have any car accidents today. Stephanie, good to see you. And joining us. Go ahead. Sorry?
Not today, but maybe tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. With us today is Dr. Deepak Bhootra. He's a sales coach with 30 years across 4 countries, helping B2B teams close larger deals faster through his formula, mindset plus skill set plus process multiplied by execution. I'm a little bummed about that because I was told there wasn't going to be any math.
It was my understanding that there would be no math.
But we'll try to get through the formula here. Deepak, let's talk about most founders and what they're terrified of. Like, we have this notion that anybody willing to talk to us about selling, we're going to try to sell them. So disqualifying leads can be very, very difficult. I do want to talk about how do you qualify it, but also I think part of qualifying them is disqualifying them. But talk us about that talk us through that a little bit.
I think let me start with first the founder mindset, right? So Here's the bad news. I've spent 30 years in the corporate world, so I come into this conversation with a very big enterprise mindset, right? So when I am working for HP or working for Sun Microsystems, I am selling their product, not my product. And I want to just start off by just mentioning to people that the emotional attachment that founders have with the product is actually a great departure point to understand selling itself, right? As a founder, now that I am a founder, I treat my selling time, my product like my baby. It's my idea. It's something. It's my identity, right? And this is a caution I always tell people. When you think about coaching a founder, one of the things I've realized as I work with founders is that they react to things in a very different way. And they do that because for them, this is very personal. They actually have skin in the game. In enterprise sales, if I don't make my quarter, I'm still going to make 60%, 70% of my salary, right? But if a founder doesn't make his quarter, he is bootstrapped. He's most likely going to be in lead shoes for a very long time. Lifting and survival is very different. So for me, when we talk about qualification or disqualification, I always try to slow people down a bit. Now let's change the basis of this conversation itself. Qualification, when it comes to a founder, is actually a very different process, a different thought process. And a founder's time is typically, when you look at an enterprise salesperson, right, Anthony, the guy typically has 6 or 7 people supporting him. You look at a founder, who's supporting him? Most founders are solopreneurs and bootstrapped. If you're going to look behind it, there's no cavalry, man. You're the army. You are the person. So therefore, qualification or disqualification takes on a very different agenda. And it's not a matter of, I have time, therefore I qualified the deal in. Because believe me, I've heard founders say that. Why do you do so many demos? I do so many demos because I have lots of time and I'm confused. I didn't know that founders had that much time to do unnecessary demos, right? So to me, that's the preamble I'd start with, is that I'd like to really, and I really think I'm going to enjoy this conversation, because for me, when we talk enterprise sales, I behave very differently with enterprise salespeople than how I deal with founders. So I'm going to make sure that I keep this, given the nature of this conversation, on what founders need to think about, because there's certain myths that founders have, and I found those to be really tragic. They hold them back as well from selling. And when the fundamentals are not understood, of course, you're going to qualify wrongly because you don't understand how to sell in the first place. But selling, and that definition, we'll get to that one, Anthony, but long-winded, but I hope you got the answer you're looking for, sir.
No, that's great. I when you said founders don't have the support they need, who supports the founder, I actually felt like giving you a hug. Like, I don't know why, but like I had this, like, I wanted to hug you for saying that, because I do think that loneliness really does ring true for me. Stephanie, what do you think about what Deepak just said?
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right that we look at leads with a lot less scrutiny, because every single one of them could be our ticket, right? They could be, we have this, we've talked about this on this show so many times about the unbridled optimism that founders have, and they have to, right? They have to, in order to keep, because why the hell else would you do this? But that also works against them when they're trying to be smart about which leads to put the most. I mean, I remember doing, it took 10 years to close one of our clients. It was a school district. And I think we went in there 5 times for 5 different demos and different leadership every time. And they just kept dragging. I mean, that's a lot of investment, right? So at what point in time do you say this lead's not panning out for me, or is not going to, give me the returns that I'm looking for? Like, what does a founder need to keep asking themselves throughout the sales process that would be different than, because I've done enterprise sales as well, so I totally understand what you're saying. So how does a founder keep themselves in check?
Well, what I want to make sure is we distinguish here also, and Deepak, I want you to answer that, but I do want to distinguish there. I think we need to distinguish between early stage founders that are looking for their first or 5th deal, right? If you're that founder, you're in the business of whatever somebody will write you a check for. That's perfectly okay. Mm-hmm. But now you've developed a sales funnel, or something that looks like a sales funnel. That's where I'd really like to focus this episode on. Is because how do we think about what this thing called qualifying leads means? We assume that you're getting leads. How do we qualify them?
Yeah. So as Steph, you'll have to remind me of your question again, because I got caught up with Anthony's distraction there. And I just felt like I'm being chased by the velociraptors. I'm looking at one in front, but the real attack comes from the side. So let me answer your question first, Steph. If you could just rephrase that for me, please.
Sorry, you want me to rephrase the question?
There was a question when you had raised it. I just want to make sure I address that and blend the 2 answers together.
Yeah, well, I think what's interesting in what you said is that founders need to ask themselves a couple more questions and have this truth telling for themselves around what's worth their effort and their time to pursue, versus thinking that every single opportunity is going to turn into the moneymaker, right?
Sure. And then I think, Anthony, your request was that there are two stages to it. One is that I'm a solopreneur potentially, and I don't have this army. But there's also another one who's actually actively selling. His past 5 or 6 years, he's got a funnel. How would you then approach it? And I think I'd approach it as follows. For me, first of all, when I talk to founders, one of the things I try to explain to them is, tell me what you think about selling in general, right? And that's where you actually need to go in first. It's not about whether they know how to qualify deals. We need to first understand, do they actually understand the responsibility when it comes to selling? And selling in the classic sense, right, is actually understanding. And I always tell, your job is not to sell, your job is to solve a problem. And they suddenly like the sound of that because they are scared of selling, because selling also has this stigma, right? Every time I ask you, tell me a situation where you got a bad example of selling, guess what? 90% of the time it's either furniture salesperson or a used car salesperson. Please tell me, how is that a good understanding to start from, right? It just doesn't make any sense. So for founders, if you are starting off, there are a couple of myths that founders come to the table with, and I really want to make sure that they get rid of those myths. Myth number one is, I built a fantastic product. If I built the product, therefore they will come. No, they won't come. They won't come. I can assure you. I've struggled with that mindset myself, big time. And I would say I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars with that myth for a very long time. And anyone who's a founder listening in right now, you got to understand, cash flow is the biggest reason you're going to fail is cash flow, nothing else. So I will always tell people there's an existential crisis with how you qualify deals in. Think of it this way. If you have scarcity of resources and what you need to do, isn't it your obligation, therefore, to find the deal where you can solve the problem the best way possible with your product, but think about the customer problem first? So you're asking questions designed around discovery, the process, right? So we talk about discovery a lot. Founders are actually pretty bad at discovery. They jump straight to demo because they think, I built this baby and this baby is so awesome, let me showcase it. That's not where it starts. The customer will watch your demo for 5 or 10 minutes and then struggle to understand, why is that relevant? The relevance is where you start from. And for me, relevance is simply discovery. What problem are you going to solve for this customer? And if that problem is solved, what would that customer feel and look like 6 months from now? And then ask yourself a simple question. If both of those cannot be answered, then there is no deal. Qualify out for the simple reason that you could be talking to a customer where there is a deal, and that customer could potentially pay you a couple of weeks earlier, which may lead to the survival of your outfit. And a lot of founders don't understand that. And it's pure play, right? At the end of the day, Anthony, to be honest with you, it's like being in a parking garage. And I tell you, Anthony, I'm going to give you an award if you can go and find a wallet. And I'll tell you, the smart founder will quickly run, open the door on each car. He'll finally find 1 or 2 cars where the door was left open, right? And he wins this deal, as he calls it, gets the wallet. But you got to ask yourself, was that a process that you followed, or what exactly did you do? He just based it on chance. And that's exactly what most founders do. If I do 10 demos, then one has to buy. No, it won't happen. I can tell you why. It's like going into a church and asking for the first Muslim in church who could show you where the closest mosque is. The probability of finding a Christian a Muslim in a Christian church is very slim, right? You might find someone who will show you the directions. And I think that's what founders do. There's this also sense, right? We got to do the hustle. We got to do the grind. We got to be always busy. And how do you get busy? I am right now coaching a founder who actually gave an objective to his first founding AE. And this will make you laugh, Anthony. The agenda was, I need 5 demos per week. I don't care about anything else. What exactly do you think this founding AE did? Despite this fancy moniker and the fact that he has stake in the organization, he just went nuts. He started communicating with every person. And his agenda was to just get as many notches on the stick as possible. And my response is, 5 more notches and mate, there is no stick. You're going to fall over. And most likely you've sharpened the edge. You're going to fall over. You're going to stake this through your heart as well. So founders, beware. Selling is not just an art or a science, nor should it be something that you should be afraid of. It's about allocation of time in a fruitful way that ensures that you get paid for the effort you put in so that you survive. And when you put it that way, suddenly the guys start getting some respect for the process.
So boil that down into, I'm a founder and I have a list of opportunities because I've built myself a little pipeline.
Yeah.
What criteria, what thinking or criteria am I going through to get to a place where I'm actually focusing on my best deals?
Let me start by telling you what I don't want you to do. And there's some rational reason out there that everyone talks about budget, and authority and this and that. And I'm like, BANT is ancient. It's 50 years old. It hasn't kept up with the times. Founders need to ask very different questions. First, understand what the problem is. Understanding the problem requires you to do a bit of a diagnosis, as I call it. When you go into the doctor's office, the doctor doesn't just step into a prognosis. He doesn't say to you, "Oh, Stephanie, for your condition, since you wrecked your car, you might have a whiplash injury." And he first asks you a few questions. Exactly how are you sitting in the car when it hit you from the back, Stephanie? At that point, Stephanie, did you feel any pain? Was the pain sharp? Was the pain dull? Founders are jumping straight into music or sounds that they want to hear. Now, if a doctor is let me put maxillofacial guy, right? The first question he's going to ask is, Stephanie, did your face hit the steering wheel by any chance? And you're going to say, where is that coming from? And that's exactly what founders are doing. They are super accelerating a conversation. They look for those specific sounds. So I make it very clear. Don't get excited when you hear something go kaching, kaching because you heard a certain word. Dig in deeper. Get to understanding what is the personal pain that this customer is facing, not just the corporate pain that the customer is facing. Because when you get to that level, you've really gone down into levels and levels of layering. So Steph, I would argue discovery, focusing on pain, focusing on understanding, and then talk about fit and how you can solve it, but not by features. It's going to be showcasing the things that you will solve, how the resolution of the pain gives you a gain today and potentially a bigger gain in the future. And most founders that are very successful tend to figure out a message, right? It's not a pitch deck. You're not doing a pitch deck at this stage over there. No one's telling you that you need to give your 60-second elevator pitch and therefore you get $1 million. And founders tend to get to this very quick, very fast. Two, there's also this misnomer. Founders are super excellent, super sharp guys. And I assure you, there's an inverted ratio. The higher the guy is on the YC, talk list or the support list or getting funding, the lower is on the selling side of things, because there's a certain persona they bring to the mix, which is just wrong. The persona is that you are serving, you're solving problems, not selling a product. But that, Steph, is my way of trying to explain it as to at a granular level, what I think the guys need to be doing. More in terms of what variables to look for. Don't ask them what budget they have. No one has a budget on many of the ideas that founders have, right? The question you should be asking is, try to understand the pain, and then from the pain, try to figure out what is the cost of that pain, and then tell them, I can solve that cost of that pain by 30 cents to the dollar. Then there's the 3x ratio right there. Guys don't get into that type of articulation also. They hear pain, they feel they can solve it, they stop asking the right question. And this is very, very, very important. Most founders can be very successful, but they actually stop the conversation because they take all the wrong information and think that they have a sale when they don't have a sale. What you have is what I call a mood swing. You have a mood swing, you think something's going in your direction, and you kind of just go with the flow, and you shouldn't do that. Bring the conversation always back to pain. You do not progress beyond pain until you have clarity on what is it you're solving, what is the scope of what you're solving, and what does that mean to the customer if you solve it. Without that, there's no point in moving forward.
I'm going to go one.
Go ahead, Steph. Go ahead, Steph. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I would go one level further with that. Just in my experience in selling, is that if I'm going to be qualifying or disqualifying leads inside of a pipeline, I'm actually going to start with the ones that, regardless of how good the fit is from a pain perspective, that I actually have a relationship with, that I can connect with, because the person I can sell best to is the one that I can communicate with most effectively and empathize with. So I'm going to start there. Those are my hot leads. They have a need and a demonstrated desire to fill that need, but of those qualified prospects, I'm going to go directly to the ones and spend my time with the ones that I can have a personal connection with.
Sure. Let's talk about that, right? If you have a personal connection, I would argue as follows. Relevance is something that's oversold. People look at signals. Someone downloaded a document from my website. He's hot to go. And I see founders chasing into the wind on that one as well, right? I know someone, therefore I can sell to him. That's awesome. They'll open the door for you, but you'll be shocked to learn, Steph, but my experience has been that until you do not, you get the door open based on relationship, but you need to know whether they have a problem or not. And that could be looking at signals, right? There's tons of tools out there right now. I mean, I got people analyzing, how do you say this, your posts as well. And I was unfortunately telling a founder, I like the fact that you're spending tons of time following VPs of sales and looking very closely at their posts. Here's the bad news. Most VPs and senior vice presidents are paying people money to do those posts for them or using ChatGPT. You're not going to get a lot of so-called, the DISC extended, you got DISC as an example, right? There are people making millions of dollars telling you how to interpret DISC from people's writings. I'm a bit confused. 90% of my work that I'm doing lately It's ChatGPT, and then me getting on top of it to fix and clear up. Ideas are mine. But if someone's going to try to analyze my mindset or how to sell to me, I have a problem with that. So relevance is important, but you need to also be able to qualify out very fast and very quick. And to establish relevance, it's not just the relationship stuff. It's got to be ultimately, I'm coming to you with the relationship. I think I see a problem, but you need validation of that. And that's where the structured conversation needs to come into play. Most founders get straight to demo. Demo is an absolute waste of time getting to a demo. Demo is an art or a science by itself, but a lot of guys just do the demo. So I've noticed, and this is an interesting ratio. Anthony, when we were doing a lot of work at HP, now I look at the work that I'm doing right now, I would say that HP gets to demo, I would say 3 times slower than what I've seen founders get to demo at. And two, the count of demos are very different. HP only gets to demo when they have actually done some level of qualification. But I look at founders today, they do a demo because guess what? Their entire life has been using the demo to raise funding. So therefore, they consider the demo to be the most important aspect of. It's not. In fact, I would argue, and I've seen it, I've joined many customers, I joined the demos to then give them feedback on it. They actually lose deals in demos. And I'll tell you why they lose deals. Because they don't understand the pain and they're highlighting the wrong features which are not relevant to that customer. Yes, he likes it, but Anthony, when you go get a car and someone says to Anthony, by the way, this car can do A, B, C, and you say, yeah, that's fine, but I'm more concerned about what does mileage, what are the brakes like, can it take 6 big Americans in the back, stuff like that, logical questions. So, Steph, I hear you. Relevance is oversold in the market. Relationships are oversold in the market. There's a lot that you can do prior to that. But at the end of the day, when you are face to face, how are you going to have that conversation? That mindset is problematic for a lot of founders. They're used to making pitches. They're used to selling their idea. They're not used to positioning a problem-solving mindset or a service mindset. And I think that's what I typically focus on with these guys. And getting to a demo means you need to get through some hurdles. And I typically will help with them creating. We spoke about scoring as an example, right? You'll be surprised, Steph. When you give these guys a rubric and ask them to score against that rubric, they themselves are surprised. Wow, I only got a 50, but then why am I demoing to them? Good question. Why are you demoing to them? So it's all about structure. You got to give the structure and then watch them compete against that structure. And now comes the next question. Which founder in the right mind is going to walk away from a deal? That's the problem, right? It's like the lottery ticket, Anthony. Each ticket has an equal chance of winning. But guess what? If I take one of them and I tear them up, it also has the same equal chance of not winning, by the way, right? But if I tear up one, you're going to suddenly feel, Deepak, you tore up the one that might be the winning ticket. And that's just human logic or concepts. And I think that's the same situation with it. Requires tremendous mindset to be able to walk away from a deal knowing that you're going to focus on something else. And here's another truth that happens with founders. And this is the good question you asked, Anthony. When you are at 5 or 6 deals, your mindset is different. But when you're at 5 or more, you need to get more structured with it. My recommendation to people that are at 5 or 6 is as follows. It's one of those situations where you walk into a bar and there are 6 women at the bar and each one of them look up. But you have to figure out the right signal and the right context to know which conversation to start, or you're going to go home broken that night, right? And it's the same thing with founders as well. You need to get pretty fast and pretty quick at assessing what is the game, what is the plan, and what are the questions that I need to ask. Again, a bit of a long-winded answer, but I am not convinced fully, Steph, that relationships itself are cutting it nowadays. I have a Rolodex which is so long, one would think that my diary is full up with coaching assignments and so on.
I've never had a successful salesperson that I thought was going to be successful because of the Rolodex. It's never happened once.
No. Yeah. But let me be clear on what I'm talking about. Is not the relationship. It's the connection. So if I have 10 leads that are all qualified in the same way on paper, through data, through understanding their need, through, like, let's say they're all the same in terms of being a qualified lead, I am going to start with the ones where I can have a very connective conversation, because to me, a sales conversation is all about letting them talk first, and they're going to give you everything that you need to know to be able to position your sales conversation to fit. Or they're going to give you information that's going to help you understand that this is not a good fit at all, right? So if I can have that connective conversation and I have a rapport, I'm going to start with those ones first, because to me, sales is very much not predicated on the pitch or the demo or the whatever, right?
I see your point of view. So look, bonding and rapport is critical, right? People buy from people, number one. And that's one of the reasons why I keep telling salespeople the threat of AI is there, but it's going to be a salesperson using AI to kick you out of your job. It's not going to be that you're going to be replaced by AI, because at the end of the day, there's a certain judgment, Stephanie, in your dialogue. There's a judgment that happens in the moment, and that judgment will always remain with a solid salesperson. For me, yes, relationships matter. Now let's take a rubric as an example. In a situation like that, what would that rubric look like? The rubric would be as follows. What is the competitive positioning in that account could also be a way to look at it, right? Do they have a dual vendor strategy? Do they already have an incumbent that you need to kick out? Or are you going in fresh? That positions yourself to get to know that information. Number two, one trick that I've seen a lot of people apply to, and which I really found most rockstar salespeople applying very well, is like trying to understand, where is this person that I'm selling to and who am I selling to? And then looking at his personal agenda, what does he get out of it? Is there a promotion in it for him? Has he had a failed project? Is he hungry for a successful project? And that's where it blew my mind. I used to discount these things. But Steph, there's a reality in what you're saying. Reality is that when you know that relationship, when you know that personal angst that person is failing, and if you can sell it to that person. And two, look, one of the tricks, one of the most powerful things that I've seen is that, Steph, never sell people your data. Rather, let them sell their data to you and then use that data to your benefit when you do your ROI and stuff like that. When you tell someone, I've helped another customer reduce their OPEX by 3x, it's nice, but it's better if he tells you what effort have they put in to reduce their OPEX till now. And then you tell them, oh, you've already reduced 20%. I think that if we do this, we can add another 10% to it. That becomes an amazing way to position it to a salesperson, to a buyer who's listening to that conversation. Relationships matter. They absolutely do. But again, when it comes to relationship, this is where most founders make a mess. And this is another area of mine which I specialize in, Steph. This will make you laugh. You know, the old rule about walking into a room and looking at nonsense on LinkedIn and seeing that he's a golfer and then starting a conversation on golf. That's another one. Founders do that quite substantially very well because they don't know how to sell. So they will go and latch on to relationships. And that's my caution. So when I initially heard your question, I just wanted to caution founders that when you look for relationship, don't try to fake it till you make it. Don't build relationships when none exist. The best relationship that you can do with a buyer is a relationship based on solving a problem that matters to them, and two, solving a problem that has personal impact to them. If a CFO is telling you that I am tired of all the clawbacks that we give to salespeople and then they hate my guts, then that tells you that there's an issue with the clawback mechanism. So that means that most likely the goaling mechanism, the compensation strategy is flawed. Now you start digging in to understand. So the CFO is going to be very excited if you tell him that this will reduce the number of disputes and claims, as well as allow you to pay reps out faster. He likes that because it's less angst for him and less tires slashed after hours for him. So that's the only way that I would position it. I hope that helps.
I think one of the key things that I wanted to highlight that you said, Deepak, was I always called it understand how the person you're talking to, how they're measured. How are they? So you're talking about what motivates them, what gives them angst, but it's essentially what are their KPIs and how can you dive into it? Steph, what in there that do you want to pull on?
I want to pull on timing too. Like we're talking, bringing it back to our topic around disqualification and qualifying leads. I mean, how long do you give a lead before you disqualify them? Like, is there a churn rate inside of your pipeline that you're on an ongoing basis? You're looking at your pipeline, you're saying, all right, these guys, I have given them 3 chances, or they've been in here for 3 months, or they, what's the right measure there? Like, what I'm really asking is not the time, but what's the practice? What's the practice that
what are the gates?
Do good pipeline hygiene?
I think that's a brilliant question, right? Here's what happens. A founder sees a funnel, and on one of the podcasts, Anthony, you had a brilliant comment, which I really liked a lot. A funnel by design seems to show a beautiful shape that shows, lots in the front and then tightening in the front. But then there's a word that you use, Anthony, which I thought was spot on. There's a sieve in it. Things fall out. And I think the problem with founders is that they think that nothing should fall out. So first thing first is the funnel is designed not to bring a herd of sheep into a little funnel, but it's actually designed to allow some sheep to fall out of the way. And you need to be ready for that. Now comes timing. When should sheep fall out? Here's my response. You need to look at look at it this as sunk cost. How much time are you willing to spend to chase this? And you need to figure out at what point do you stop chasing it. And that mathematical model is a very obtuse one. The one that I typically use, where I tell them that, as you said, Steph, enough is enough. I've had 3 hits at this and I'm out, is when customer says, I still need this information despite providing information to them multiple times. He still asks for more information. That's not an RFP anymore. That's just RFI. It's a hunt for the ghost of Christmas past. There's nothing happening there. You can push as much. Now figure out a way to trickle feed him and keep him warm, but get out fast. Another one is, we don't ask the budget question too early, but at some point do get a feel for whether these guys are serious enough about the problem. The seriousness of a problem has to be the words they use. So I tell people, look for proxy. Ask yourself, did you at any point hear them saying, if we did this and if we solve this, we can save this much? If you haven't heard metrics like that, then you're not selling to solve any solution. Dig in and get those type of metrics first. That's another indication. If after 5 conversations, you still don't know what the size of the problem is, what the size of the benefit is, and how long it could potentially get there, walk away. Customers not ready. They're not clear at all. And another one I always tell is, ask your champion. This is a nugget that I can tell you, Stephanie, is that where founders really flounder. I just love that. I had to throw in something for you, right, Anthony? Where founders flounder is very simple. They actually don't understand what the system of champions are. How do you sell within an organization? Who do you sell to? Who's a coach in there? How to milk them? How to use them, right? And it sounds like I'm asking for manipulation. I'm not. I'm asking for diplomacy. At the end of the day, people buy from people. And if you're breaking bread with someone, and as you put it, Stephanie, you got a rapport, then you really need to ask yourself, are you truly in a position of strength based on what you see, or are you misguiding yourself? I mean, how many times have you heard someone say, hey, guys, that was a great presentation, and then all silent? Why? It was a great presentation. We loved the entertainment. Thanks. But guess what? It doesn't solve my problem.
The common, and so I come from the technology sector. I've done a lot of big enterprise sales in the technology sector, and for services and for products. And it's a very male-dominated space, and the men would always say to me, "Oh, unless you're speaking to the CEO, don't bother." And I'm like, actually, I'm going to challenge that, because if in the courses of my conversations, I'm at a networking event, I'm at a conference, I'm wherever, I know I want this account, I'm going to start making friends with the people who are actually on the street, who are the feet on the street, who are responsible for implementation, who are actually the ones who feel the pain for this problem, so that at the point in time where either they're going to recommend to the CEO that I have a conversation with them, or by the time I do connect with the CEO, they talk to their people about, and then I've got both, right? Then I've got the support from underneath, and that's really, really powerful.
And Steph, Steph, I'm very excited with this conversation, because again, I go back to rockstar sales guys that I'm coaching, right? One of the things that they know, the champions, they also know who to go to get coaching, but they also know one very important variable, which is what's not on the organization chart, which is the inner circle of influence, right? And you and I, we played this game. The CEO will always have 2 people that report him in the chart, but there's also someone that most likely that he trusts the judgment on. And that's where you and I make our money. We don't make our money by doing demos or product sales. And most founders are not used to that type of the mechanics of that discussion, because they don't relate to it. They're most likely not coming from a sales background. So my request to them always is one, and this is a very funny thing, and I'll say this to you, Steph, which I love. I always encourage founders to box weight class above what they think they can possibly do. A lot of these guys are coming in, and they're most likely an engineer who's got a tremendous idea. He's worked for 10 years at Meta, and now he's got this idea. And now suddenly he's going to speak to the CEO of, let's say, some Verizon or whatever, and he's got to position this beautiful idea they have. I mean, I just this morning had a call with a guy that used to sell with me at HP many, many years ago. And I had moved into sales operations, and he was telling me how he got PIP'd because of the size of certain deals in which his behavior did not fit in. And when he finally left the organization, we then started discussing what exactly did you do to rectify that. And in that conversation, he said he actually made it very, very critical to make sure that he was working on relationships very, very well, but also looking at beyond the org chart, because he realized that in most of his sales, there was always someone coming in from outside that would disrupt his cycle because he had missed it. He could not figure out who he had missed out in the org chart conversation. And that is something that he was putting in a lot of effort into. So for founders who are coming in from a non-sales background, my request would be to kind of slow down. Be very reticent into jumping into demos. First, understand the problem you're solving. Look at the lay of the land, as you put it, Steph, right? Build a rapport. And to be honest with you, it's like, look at LinkedIn. And I sometimes give my founders simple advice. In LinkedIn, how do you feel when you get a connection request and within 5 minutes someone says, hey, by the way, I've got something to sell to you? You're like really upset, right?
That never happens.
I've never experienced never that. Happens to you. There you go. I'm telling you, Steph, you awesome name. I mean, I'm sure people can't type such a long name, but Steph, and I know you're being funny and I'm being funny as well. But Steph, really funny thing is that founders kind of don't understand that sometimes in sales, you got to take the long game. Mm-hmm. I know salespeople that have diligently worked on account for 2 years and the pipeline was 5 million, but after 2 years, he sells a $50 million deal. And you got to ask yourself, what? Like an 8x return? How is that possible? That happens because he's nurturing that relationship, that account. He's taking, and is another trick I tell founders, don't go for the big win. I know you got to pay the bills, but here's one thing that I've learned with salespeople. When a salesperson goes and sells for his back pocket or for the fact that he's at 90%, he needs this deal because he needs to close at 100%, that's when he loses the deal. Same thing with founders. He's worried about paying the bill. And when you're worried about paying the bill, you're going to do and say the things that are going to sound salesy. And you can't delay. You need to have a horizon of maybe months, if not quarters, when dealing with some of these things. So that patience.
Well, that's why I ask you the question around the timelines, because I do think a lot of this is a long game. And I mean, the holy grail is to have pull sales, right? Where you've been out and you have developed your thought leadership and you have been present and gotten to know a lot of people in the community to the point where they're actually coming to you and asking you to be part of a sales conversation. Great. That's the holy grail. But I also think that, there's nuance to the churn of your pipeline, right? It's not just like, well, you've been in here for 3 months. We didn't get anything from you, so you're out, right? I think they sort of follow into a different category where, you're not putting all of your time and effort into them, but you're now starting to think about, well, it's an account that I can say would be good for us, but how do I now develop a strategy to build that out and to become more present without it sort of pillaging all of the rest of my time and energy.
And my effort and my focus. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, but that churn I think has to happen. But you got to know your industry too. Like selling into K-12 public education, it's a 2-year sales cycle every time.
Absolutely, government, right? And this is also one of those things, right? I look at founders as an example. I mean, Anthony, I stay away from enterprise coaching and sales training for the simple reason that it takes me 6 months to just complete the paperwork and get myself registered and stuff. It's not even worth it. It's not even worth it. So for founders, I would say, find that balance as well. So right now I'm coaching 6 founders and I've got strategic equity in their organizations. When we initially started, I was literally explaining to them what selling is all about. And they suddenly woke up and like, whoa, wait a minute, I never realized. And when we're talking about myths, Steph, the reality is that most of these guys are perfectionists. They are so busy putting the bells and whistles in a minimum viable product. And they use these terms which denote, even MVP means something is done, right? It's a cake which doesn't have candlelight, but still is a cake, right? And here's the fun part. A lot of these guys don't actually realize that you need to be 70% ready with 100% sales committed. They wait to be 100% ready and then 70% sales committed. And that ratio never works. It never works. So how do you get that mindset right? And that is through smaller wins. Go get your product and do something small. Ring the bell. These guys are always waiting for the big one because guess what? The next unicorn, ladies and gentlemen, and then he goes into selling more with the same mindset. And I'm like very, very nervous. And I tell the guys, no, you got $5,000 worth of a pilot. Awesome. And pilots are a great idea. Why not? Do more pilots. Go get a foot in the door. People don't know you. When I started off as an entrepreneur, Steph, in July 2024, the first 2 months were the most miserable of my life. I used to make cold calls and I would say, hi, this is Deepak from HP. And they would say, hey, Deepak, how can I help you? Now I call, hi, this is Deepak from Jabrani Consulting. And they're like, who are you? Where do you get my number from? SU, this you, and then boom. And I'm like, it's the same Deepak. What changed was that what I thought was a cold call was not a cold call. It was HP calling. So they were answering HP's call. So that's why if you're 100% right. If you're a salesperson, you're trying to differentiate yourself. How are you going to differentiate yourself? You differentiate yourself with this trickle feed of subject matter expertise that actually tells the buyer, this dude is the guy. He is the cheese. He's the right person to work with. And I'm getting all my American monikers wrong there. I apologize, right? But this is where the fun starts for me. And it's taken me as an entrepreneur, as a founder myself. And Steph, here's the fun part. Founders tell me, Deepak, you make sales sound so difficult and mental resilience, but do you know how difficult it is to raise funding? I said, right. And that's exactly why I'm telling you, selling can have the same impact if you're going to connect your personal self-worth and identity to that no. So look, I'm a Gambassador. I work closely with the Gamma guys, right? And I've listened to Grant Lee talk a lot, Anthony, about how he grew the business, right? Today, when you listen to these guys, they make it sound like it was a linear path to success. And it's not. Because the story is telling you today is rear view focus, so nice and clean. It makes it look like what a cakewalk for these guys. They pivoted multiple times. Same thing for any founder selling. You will learn from your mistake, but what will you do about it? I've got a founder right now who actually tells me, I did a demo. I learned how to do a better demo. And the question I'm asking him is, why did you not learn how to do lesser demos? And what are your criteria to get to a demo? And I'm banging on this demo thing because, Anthony, this is the single biggest thing I see with founders. They're so good at demos. They've spent their entire existence showcasing the product that they actually think they can lead with the product. Cannot lead with the product. You got to lead with a solution to a problem that you need to identify by having a conversation. And that conversation isn't a demo. That's how I would position it.
I think so. I think we could probably spend another hour chatting about this. This is really great. A really great primer into understanding the sales process, specifically when it comes to lead gen. But we do need to move to the speed round. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to get right into the speed round. All right, doctor. A prospect says, send me a proposal in the first meeting. Is that a red flag or a green light?
It depends on what's happened in the meeting.
Okay.
My first deal. Sorry, carry on.
Go ahead. Add color.
My first deal, Steph, I kid you not, a $250K deal, 27-year-old standing in my jacket that didn't fit my stomach. I start my pitch and my boss walks in, realizes he's in the wrong meeting room, apologizes, walks out, and my customer says to me, who was that? And I said, that's Stefan Fick. And he says, you know what? I think he was in school with me. He goes, gets Stefan Fick. Stefan Fick walks in and he says, Steffi, they hug. Then he looks at me and says, this deal is yours. And I'm like, I want to present.
The sales thing is easy, right?
And it was easy. There you go. My first deal in my life, $250K order happens because my boss and him went to high school. And he says, this guy is so good that anywhere and any product he touches, I'll buy blindly. And I benefited from that. But here's the catch. 30 years later, I'm still complaining about it, Steph, believe it or not, because I really feel that I snatched it from the jaws of victory. But you know what? I never got to finish my slides. It's still a problem.
You didn't do your demo.
I didn't do my demo. You absolutely my slide.
Next question. Percentage of your pipeline you should be actively trying to kill.
Oh, 50%.
Okay.
I'm absolutely at least I would. Yeah.
The buyer ghosts after a great demo. Forget the fact that the buyer ghosts after a great call. Chase them or move on. The buyer goes after a great call. They ghost. They will not reply to any emails or calls.
Oh, no.
They ghost you. Do you chase them or move on?
Keep in touch. Keep adding value. And take the long game. I have got, I would say 50% of my customers ghosted me, but they come back after 6 months to 12 months.
Totally agree.
Something happened at that particular
because
time.
Of your demo.
Not ready. Yeah, he was not ready.
Demo.
But
which wastes more deals? Qualifying too slow or disqualifying too fast?
Repeat that because I love that question.
Which wastes more deals? Which kills more deals? Qualifying too slow or disqualifying too fast?
Qualifying too slow.
Okay. A prospect wants to negotiate price before seeing the solution. Is that something you walk away from?
No, do not walk away from. Give a range and hope for the best. Because if he's asking, he's got something in his mind. You can ask more questions, but I would actually go ahead and reveal the price if necessary, but give a range. Never give an exact number.
So I'm going to comment and then we'll get into the deep dives, but that is not the by the book answer.
No, it's not.
And it's you're 100% right. So I totally agree with you. But everybody talks about not being the first person to say a price, or I totally agree with you. If that's what somebody's asking you, you do it.
I don't want to carry on. I don't even want to carry on the conversation if it's like, I remember being on the receiving end of a sales conversation where I was the buyer And the person came back with a price point at the very end of our conversation that was so drastically out of range for my budget that I was like, we just wasted an hour and a half talking together. I wasted your time, you wasted my time. And that's why I'm always a huge proponent of put pricing on your website. Like, even for solo entrepreneurs who
there's
are
so
solo
much
providers.
power in what Steph just said. There's also one more trick that I tell founders to look at. Is look at the seniority of the person asking that question. If he is one of the decision makers, then stop playing, doing nonsense. No little tippy-toey. Get to the point. Senior guy is asking you. That tells you. And to be honest, in my history, when a senior person is asking about price value in the game, that's actually a positive sign.
It's a buying sign.
It's a buying sign.
It's a buying signal. 100% agree.
It's like me sitting there trying to coach someone who's asking. Deepak, Sandler says that we need to do 9 levels of questioning. Therefore, I'm still on question 7. I'm going to do 8 and then 9. And I'm like,
But also be careful of the buyer, of the more junior employee who's asking about price, because they want to try and negotiate and be the hero because they came back with a cheaper, like that's the only value that they're offering to their superior, right?
And I also say, look at who it is and what it is. If it is procurement, then Steph, you and I know that most procurement departments nowadays are actually bonused and incentivized to squeeze the juice, as we say, right? And the trick there is how do you play them and the customer off against each other very carefully? Because the customer, when I say customer, I'm talking about the guy buying. So
the guy whose problem you're solving.
Whose problem I'm solving. So when I was in sales operations, I used to sit across the table listening to all the vendors, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, all the boys would come and explain the product and so on. And at the end of the day, the procurement guys would always talk about the fact that, hey, hold on, we're going to buy X, therefore you're going to give us this discount. And by the way, we pay this much for that. And they would keep nodding their heads along. But the signal would always come from the guy whose problem they're solving. And if that problem was being solved, and if they usually would figure out where the budget would come from. But you got to get that problem statement in there. And
that's great. So let me talk about deep dive resources really quick. Couple more places where you can find out more. First, you can go read the book Gap Selling by Keenan, The Standard Rules by David Mattson, or you can hire a great coach. Doctor, where can we find
one of those?
where can our listeners learn more about you?
Sure. So here's what my wife says. I don't even know why you have a website. Just tell people to go on LinkedIn and just shout Deepak Bhootra, and you're always welcome there. So you'll find me, Deepak Bhootra, on LinkedIn. I'm the only one that actually got that name. There are 6 more, and the poor guys are stuck with 666 or 555 and so on in their names. I'm Deepak Bhootra. I also have a website. That's my personal website that is being shared right now. That's kind of got my, my own persona in terms of what I do and what I don't do. That's the best way to reach out to me. And I'm on DM. And when we talk about great coaches, I actually don't take on customers or clients until we have had a conversation first and you've understood exactly what is that I offer, because many times I'm not the right fit. I have had situations with a customer in Austin specifically who said to me, I don't understand your style. I said, if you don't understand my style, I cannot do better. I don't know how to remove my accent. I don't know how to improve my skin color. So he's my client right now. So it's sometimes people buy, sometimes people don't buy, and I just move on with it. So where can you find me?
I'll connect with you on LinkedIn, and you can expect a DM from me shortly to sell you my services.
That's awesome. All right, this was actually true. I think we got 3 episodes worth of content in this last 45 minutes. Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and close this out?
All right. Thanks for being with us. We are always so happy to have you join us and to be, with you along the way. Be sure to come and visit us at howtofounder.com, where you can connect with us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify channels. We hit top 20 podcasts on Spotify last year.
Top 20%. Yes.
Top 20%.
A little bit of a difference there.
Small miss, big difference. But we're getting there, and we're having some great conversations and having a lot of fun. We believe very strongly in you being the pure pioneer of economic prosperity. We're so grateful for you being with us all along the way, and leave us a review and let us know what else you want to hear us talk about.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thanks.
My pleasure, Anthony. Thank you, Stephanie, for having me.
Bye.